Hi, these are the Style Pile notes. These notes help writers add sentence variety and style to their writing. Go beyond "my dog ran" to "my dog, the beautiful, courageous pug, ran hideously slow." Okay, here's how it works. Open up the notes. If you are in my class, you should have a digital copy in Google Classroom. If not, go to the URL and make a copy for yourself. Watch the lesson while filling in your notes. Only copy the parts in red font. This is Mr. Davis, and today's Style Pile notes are going to focus on parallelism, a really great, simple way to add style and flair to your writing. Alright, first box on your note says, what is it? It's going to be parallelism. Okay, before we fill in that second box, I'm going to teach you parallelism before I even talk about the rules and examples. So forget about your notes for a second and let's just see if we can figure out these patterns. I want you to finish these patterns here. Number one says A, B, B, blank, D, D. What goes inside of that blank? C, C, right? We know that because we know the alphabet. We can see the pattern there. All right, let's do the second one. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. We know that again because we can see the pattern, right? It's all the odd numbers, or even if we don't know it that fancy, it's just increasing by 2, okay? So we understand number 1, there's a pattern. Number 2, there's a pattern. Let's take a look at number 3. I was walking, talking, and eat blank all day. What belongs in that blank? If you said or thought ing, guess what? Not only are you correct, but you already understand what parallelism is. Parallelism is nothing more than a repetition of a pattern in language or in writing. So when you look here, we saw the pattern for number 1, we saw the pattern for number 2. Parallelism is just repeating a pattern in writing. So walking, talking, eating. That's all parallelism is. If that made sense to you, you already understand parallelism. Okay, back to our notes now. Rules and examples box. Rule number 1, sort of a description of what parallelism is, which I've said previously, but parallelism is a repetition of a pattern in language. Rule number 2, you must repeat the pattern you have created. So whatever pattern you create, in order to have parallelism, you have to repeat it. Let's take a look at this example on the bottom here. She went to dance, to sing, and to party. As you can see, this is a very simple pattern. It's to, then something, to, then something, to, then something. As we go on throughout this video, and as you go to use parallelism, the goal is to move beyond these very simple patterns to more complicated patterns. Because that's such an easy way to enhance your writing, you want to try to make the patterns that you're repeating a little bit more complicated than these simple ones, but this is a good place to start. Okay, so based on what we just talked about repeating a pattern in language, I want you to think to yourself, what is wrong with this example? Take a moment, pause the video, and decide what's wrong with this example here. Okay, hopefully you took a moment to pause the video, you tried to identify the pattern, and then you tried to find where it went wrong. So let's look at this together and break it down together. Phil always likes to go to the most run down, the most broken, and ugly. Okay, you can kind of hear where the pattern breaks down, right? It's this part right here, because Phil always likes to go to the most run down, the most broken, and ugly. Well, we made a pattern, the most blank, but then we broke that pattern, so we messed up our parallelism. In order to fix this, we should put in the most. And now let's read it all the way through. Phil always likes to go to the most rundown, the most broken, and the most ugly parts of the city for dates with his wife, so he looks better by comparison. Not only is that correct parallelism, but it's also a really good idea. Why is parallelism so powerful? Well, not only does it sound good and does it look good to the eye, but it really has an impact on the audience. Looking at this photo here, if I were to ask you to tell me the most important words this man ever said, everyone would think or say the exact same thing. And the reason for that is because of parallelism.
It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my poor little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
So, obviously you guys heard the most famous example of parallelism from this speech. I have a dream that one day, I have a dream that one day, I have a dream that one day, I have a dream that, and he does kind of change the pattern here, so technically it's not 100% perfect parallelism, but still I'm not going to criticize Martin Luther King Jr. for giving one of the most well-known speeches in all American history. I'm going to let him break the pattern a little bit, but if we were to say it was perfect parallelism, that last one would say I have a dream that one day as well. That being said, as the speech was going, you noticed that I was underlining, hopefully, other examples of parallelism that he has in his speech. So if we look here, we've got rise up, live out. Rise is a verb, up is a direction, live is a verb, out is a direction as well. Then this next pattern is a little bit more complicated, the kind of pattern you want to gun for when you're adding parallelism to your writing. The sons of former slaves. The sons of former slave owners. We've also got sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression. And then one final one that I pointed out as the speech was going, by the color of their skin, by the content of their character. Again, everyone remembers the I have a dream part of the parallelism within Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech, but it is important to note that he was masterful at weaving in parallelism all throughout his speech, not just with I have a dream, but the other parts of his speech as well. Alright, now that we know, 1, how easy parallelism is to use, and 2, how truly powerful parallelism can be, I want you to move down to your third box, to the Use It box. I want you to describe the best day of your life using parallelism to do so. Try to use a complex pattern. So try to avoid a simple pattern. Try to spice it up a little bit. Pause the video for a moment. Fill in your Use It box. So here's just one example of how to use parallelism in your writing. I tried to do a little bit more complicated of a pattern here. It's not super complex, but still a little bit more complicated. The best day of my life involves writing Disneyland rides, eating Disneyland food, and watching Disneyland fireworks. By the way, that really is the best day of my life as far as I can see it, right? So the pattern here is pretty obvious. I've got the verb riding, then I've got Disneyland rides, then I've got the verb eating, then I've got Disneyland food, and then I've got the verb watching Disneyland fireworks. This is just one way in which you could describe the best day of your life. Again, just check to make sure that the pattern you created, it repeats correctly. And if you're still not sure, maybe call your teacher on over, have them check your parallelism. So if you'd like to see another example of parallelism, you can pause the video for a moment and just kind of check out this pattern here. Your job now, add parallelism to your writing to add style and flair to your writing. Add parallelism to your writing, add style to your writing, just don't overdo it. Thank you for using these style pile notes. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask your teacher.